to be a leader? You know the answer. Probably no. I spend 6,000 crores a year on IT. Is it enough to keep me a leader, make me a leader? Today, probably yes. Tomorrow, maybe. Day after, may not be. Is it enough to have a large team of people to be a leader? Maybe, may not be. So these are the questions which are agitating the minds of leadership in organizations across sectors. Because today, organizations are highly fungible across the borders. In US and UK, bank branches are called stores. What does it indicate? It indicates that the borders between retail industry and banking industry is collapsing. Telecom operators are able to provide bits of banking around their edges. Regulators are trying to catch up, but it's not known whether they will catch up. It's quite fashionable to speak about disruptions, but how does it, where is this leadership? And what is a leader? Please don't think, any one of you, for a moment, and this was again something which I face wherever I speak, is that, no, we are not leaders. We are small workers. We are at the entry level. All of you are leaders the moment you cross the boundaries of definite area of operation. When you are dealing with unpredictability, when you are dealing with something where there is no beaten track to guide you, you are a leader. Your organization is dealing with leadership stuff when it has gone into a world where past is no guide for the future. So in that context, my postulation will be that in digital world, probably the old world where we thought that if I can manage a group of 500 people, if I can manage a budget of 1,000 crores, if I can head a large organization, I am a leader. This is not going to work because of the disruptions that are coming with great velocity to the world we knew. So this is essentially, in the next 20 minutes, I'll try to give you some thoughts so that when you go back and you deal with the leadership challenges that come across you when you manage your enterprises, whether you are a startup, whether you are a middle level position, whether you are an entry level person, these thoughts must be with you, because world that we are going to face will be different from world that we faced yesterday. Now, whenever you go to seminars like these, and especially in the last 2 years, many things are told how life is getting disrupted. And some of these must be repeated for the sake of repeating. And when I talk with industry people, when I talk with startups, when I talk with CIOs across the world, I don't escape some of these, but nobody really trusts me. If you are confused what is digital, if you are confused what is digital disruption, if you are confused which way the world is going, I think you are with all the rest of us in the world. I have not seen one single person who doesn't have confusion about what exactly is digital. But some of the things that we will speak here are that one is pace. The speed with which things are coming. You may hear about many things, but speed at which things are coming were probably not imaginable. I'll give you one example from State Bank of India. We used to call the ATMs, the internet banking, and the mobile banking as the alternate channel. Now recently we have renamed it as Anytime channel. About 15 years back, about 14 years back, you know, when I was heading the main branch in Bhopal, that time my head of, you know, the administration came and told, sir, why are you after this ATM? There are so many tellers, they are doing so excellent service, people are smiling, they're going away, you have air conditioned the main waiting hall. Look how rapidly we have moved. So that point in time, we were doing 0.5% of our total transactions in these alternate channels. And last month in the board, when we reviewed for an organization like State Bank of India, which does, you know, 4,500 transactions every second, we do about 81% of our transactions in anytime channels. So which is now the alternate channel? The branch is the alternate channel. And the pace at which it is happening, you know, 50% was 1 year back, 79% in 1 year. So 0 to 50% took 14 years, and 50 to 80% took 1 year. And I'm sure 80 to 95% will take probably another 6 months. So that is the kind of pace that we are looking at. So remember, whenever you are talking about doing anything, at whatever leadership position you want, you will have to take the velocity and the scale into account. This is one important thing. The other thing that is happening is that as the ecosystem is changing, players are dynamically connected. The equations are multivariate. Solution to these equations are not just subject of calculus or trigonometry, but of various techniques. The unimaginable pace at which, you know, I have engaged 3 professors to advise me on analytics. My analytics team is today 100 strong, and we are doing, you know, modeling with the help of IIT Mumbai, IIM Kolkata, and IIM Bangalore. Leading professors are advising us. But again, the confusion is that the ecosystem is changing. For example, the first model that I did was a customer churn analysis. But what about that customer churn analysis? The ecosystem has changed, but ecosystem has changed at the top. What is my transmission quotient? How do I distribute whatever is the result to the end user based on an ongoing algorithm where predictively I find out what is his requirement and distribute it to him based on need to know and need to use. So these are the challenges of leadership which are coming out. Now, I thought I will not bring any technical stuff, but one thing I must tell you, that exchange to exchange kind of information is changing this world. E to E, as they call it. There are various things when we speak about big data, when we speak about metadata, when we speak about data lake, as the newer version of what we used to call as a data warehouse. When we speak of data as the new oil of the world, we must understand that this oil, which is data, State Bank of India generates, you know, so many terabytes of data every day, and our data warehouse stores so many petabytes of data. And for that matter, all banks, all financial institutions, all telecom companies have large amount of data. But this data, which is today called data is the new oil, is like a crude. And leaders have to subject this data to the refining process and find those tools so that this crude can go through the fractional distillation method to deliver what we call high-speed diesel, motor spirit, or even coal tar. So, but because what is happening is that this is not a linear tool that is coming out. In the digital world, the thought process is non-linear. The thought process is scattered. The thought process of the people who are delivering the value chain for an enterprise or value chain for an individual think differently. And this has to be put into an algorithm where these multivariates can be subjected to a solution matrix. And that is the challenge before the new leadership. New leadership have to deal with things which are non-linear. And exchange to exchange, as I told you, it happens, there are many things which are in the ecosystem, web to web, web to application, application to database, database to web, database to security. So there are so many things which are going on. And for a large organization like State Bank of India or for a small organization like a startup, many times the decisions have to be taken in a well-federated manner, but at a speed which is probably 1/4 of what it used to take. Just think about it. Now, is it possible that we can handle it in a typical matrix organization? The head of the organization, he has 5 vertical heads or 5 country heads, then he has functional heads. I think answer is no. Leadership is getting flatter. But trust me, that this leadership is getting flatter, all right. But the older part of organization, when I'm requested to speak, I always speak about this, State Bank of India's customer base. We have customers between the age of 18 and 108. Between the age of 18 to 40 or 18 to 38, people want everything delivered digitally. Beyond 38, my customers, they want everything delivered in a personal way. Even today, my passbook printing machines and my passbook updating apparatus, it consumes about 20,000 people of my 200,000 people. So how do I blend these two things? The variety of stakeholder and change of expectations and change of aspirations is throwing out the old legacy system of leadership. The old legacy system is what? If many of you would have seen, those of you who are working in older organizations, essentially the first 10, 12 years of digitization or computerization was automation of manual processes. Whatever we were doing. Let's say you were walking into a bank counter, you are producing a check, the ledger clerk used to post it in the ledger, give it to the passing officer for passing officer used to pass it, send it to the cashier for payment. The same thing was automated in the computer. He used to generate a queue goes to the passing officer authorizes the queue, it gets visible in the teller to make the payment. And payment is made, the cash account, cash drawers are updated, and so on and so forth. So if you think deeply, this 10, 12 years in retrospect looks like a waste. Because digital world behaves, thinks, and acts quite differently from manual world. Today, probably, the other day I was having a innovation hackathon, and because these days, again, another shift in leadership, I am trying to experiment with different styles of leadership. You have to co-create value with customers. And who are these? If you have millennials, so what I did was that I called I have about 2,000 people. I told that how many of you have, children who are young engineers. So names came about 200. So I selected 50 of them, children of my employees. I told them that please come here, have dinner with me, and give me ideas. And some of the ideas are, amazing, simply amazing. Some of them told that your internet banking must have a gaming console. In a gamified way, our expenditure must be tracked there. Then only we will use your internet banking. Otherwise, we will not use your internet banking. Where innovation is going. So what is my mindset? My mindset is that, my internet banking is not doing well. Call the salespeople, give them a big firing. What you guys are doing? You are sleeping? Why internet banking is not growing? Why Bank of Baroda's internet banking is growing? You guys must do something. This is traditional leadership. New leadership is just thinking out of the box. Let me find out how it is happening. I do not know how many of you have known about Net Promoter Scores. Net Promoter Scores are how many customers will recommend you to another person minus how many customers will not recommend you to another person is the Net Promoter Score. As you know, if you are neutral, if 50% like you and 50% don't like you, your Net Promoter Score is 0. Now leadership has to always think of what is my Net Promoter Score. In the digital world, it is doable. Something which was in the realm of imagination can be translated into reality at the moment as you think. So what happens to leadership? Now bimodal. We speak of bimodal in IT. Bimodal is combination of waterfall and agile, as most of you know. We do, waterfall. What is waterfall? For those of you who are not familiar with the word, waterfall is where you require a business requirement document, you prepare a solution document, you do a business process notation diagram, give it to development, it goes to UAT, UAT passes it, does 2-3 iterations, and it goes to production debugging, so on and so forth. This is called waterfall. Agile is where, business sits with IT, both of them, because the world is changing so fast. So what you do, you call them. Business is not fully sure what exactly is required, what is the end state they want, because ecosystem is changing very, very fast. Both of you sit together. You say that this till the next release cycle, this is what you want. And if your industry is changing very, very fast, you reduce the release cycle. Let us say you are doing development of a software. What you do is, let's say 15 days release cycle. For 15 days, the UAT people, the business people, you, the developer, everybody is together, and you keep on doing things. Again, the bimodal thing, that is for lights on kind of operation, where let's say your core banking system is involved, your own ERP system is involved, probably you'll require the old method, waterfall method. And in the newer world, you will have to switch to agile method, because many times, IT people tell, no, business, it is fashionable for business to blame IT for indigestion even. True, but you must understand, business is not doing out of any kind of evil intention to you. Business is doing it because business is pressurized. And organizations where IT, the other day I was speaking at Business Standard conclave. I told that, IT companies are prevented from becoming banks because of regulations. But banks have become IT companies, unnoticed by themselves, unnoticed by others, because everything is riding on IT. And in the new world, they say no organization will need a CIO, is because the CEO has to be the CIO. It has to be driven absolutely from the top. Top level sponsorship is essential in the new world of IT leadership, new world of digital. So bimodal is another, and customer experience. I do not know how many of you have seen some of the presentations recently, or if you don't read, there is a nice app which is available. McKinsey Quarterly is now available in application. Their research is superb. And what they say is that customer journey mapping, let's say somebody is coming for a housing loan. Banks traditionally would give a product which is called a housing loan at X rate of interest. So two things, speed with which this thing is given, the loan is given, rate at which I can borrow. These two things used to determine. But today the style is customer journey mapping. Customer doesn't care. In fact, the other day I was in Sibos, Singapore. There is a small tent like this which is called InnoTribe, Innovation Tribe. Youngsters are there, they are giving their own expectations. What we do traditionally in banking, we devise hook products, we call it hook products, housing loan, a car loan, long duration products where housing loan 25 years product, customer will touch us either virtually or in brick and mortar fashion, and we will be able to cross-sell, upsell, tell him about us and so on and so. So hook products are very popular, and that's why initially teaser loans are given, so on and so forth. But imagine what youngsters are telling. Youngsters are telling, my loyalty is not to a bank which is giving me a hook product. My loyalty is to an organization which provides me easy in and easy out facility. What do you do with that? In other words, the world is changing. We have to be ready. Gone are the old style ways where we measure customer loyalty when we give targets and when we do things. Today I am implementing a career development system in the bank. On the go, he himself can see, his boss can see, his boss's boss can see, his customer can see what exactly he's doing. So suddenly, our privacy, we have no place to hide. And more so when you are a leader, where do you hide? So customer experience, mind all of you, one thing that we forget is our internal customer. A famous book, I do not know how many of you have read, Employees First, Customers Second. How much technology, how much digital you are consuming internally will differentiate men from boys. We always look at, what our customers want. But if every day my teller comes with a long face, thinking this is, yet another day, I'll have to face low speed, I'll have to face non-optimized software, I'll have to do so many things manually, then my digital thing has failed. And that is also a new challenge. How to keep internal customers happy by improving the transmission quotient, which is that what you are deciding in the boardroom or what you are deciding at leadership level, getting transmitted is very easy. Today I go to the board without blinking an eyelid, thousands of crores is approved. No problems. But how much of those capabilities are getting translated into the front end? So that ultimately that is, because as you know, there are self-service, assisted service and brokered service. Self-service is the anytime channels where customer comes based on an SOP is delivered. But brokered service where, I have nearly 100,000 banking correspondents. And my employees who are my brokers, essentially in the language of, service delivery, they are brokers. They are paid to deliver my products and services to my end user. So if the brokers are not happy, then how do we do it? Now, features, because of virtualization, product manufacturing in the banking world, and for that matter, any other world, is a matter of, releasing another feature. Because earlier, product manufacturing in the banking sector or for any other sector it takes. Today in the virtualized world, this is a myth that you can spend so much on product designing. You must create a platform. So that is why, platform engineering, platform architect, yesterday one of the speakers was speaking. The design phase of it, the design thinking part of it is defining leadership today. If leadership cannot think in terms of design thinking, if leadership cannot think through the entire value chain of delivery, then leadership will not be able to deliver. This is also one more main thing. Now, when I took over, we had an important department called vendor management department. First thing I did was that renaming that department as partner relationship department. Today, I have no hesitation in telling that my partners deploy people who are more qualified, more experienced, and more knowledgeable than my own people. And my success depends entirely on them, or majorly on them. If 20% of my success is contributed by my own efforts and by my own team, the way the product is designed, the way the product is delivered, the way the product is implemented, the way the product is serviced, which are all critical success factors for mine, are delivered by my partners. So this collaborative working in a manner that straddles all these worlds, straddles inside, outside, somewhere it is in the gray zone, that is again defining the new style of leadership in the digital world. And this I have told. One thing I would like to tell here is that some of these have come, but regulators in their own way. I was in Tianjin in the office of Ant Financial, as you know, that is the Alibaba's headquarters. I spoke with them. Today, they have a deposit base of $500 billion on a capital of some 30-40 million. Because regulators are doing the catching up. Many times, regulators are the saviors of old and legacy players. I call, yes, we are where we are not killed overnight because there is a regulation which is ring fencing us. Again, I'm being very honest with you because I thought that forums like this must be forums for kindling your thought process, what exactly is happening. And leadership, as I told you, leadership defines from management or managerial thing in a small way, which is that unpredictable part of the world where there is no beaten track, where you will have to decide based on your intuition, and intuition is again no rocket science. Intuition, 90% I believe is what is stored in this chip. This chip continuously, the brain continuously stores the information, the ideas, the experiences that come across us. And it supplies them at appropriate doses when decision is to be made. So those intuitive, experiential, behavioral kind of things is going to be very important. And the world will not be linear. The circles will not be floating separately. Circles will be overlapping. And as you know, in overlapping sort of balloons, when a kid smokes out balloons, many times you find compound balloons, as they call it. You puncture one, everything is punctured. You'll have to keep everything intact. In the new world, all these things will be overlapping. If you don't deal with one, it could puncture everything else. So I hope that I have given you some thoughts. Now, a few things, few hints. Please do not think that this is what is prescriptive. This is only suggestive. This is based on my own experience. Some of it I have tried it myself with success. One is thinking beyond incremental. Budgets are given 10% growth, 15% growth, 20% growth. We are having 80% uptime, let us make it 85%. We are spending 1,000 crores, let us spend 1,100 crores. we have 500 people, let us put 550 people. Incremental ruled the world of leadership for quite long, but it is gone. For example, my analytical team, as I told you, I have now 100 people, but probably I'll have to ramp it up to 1,000 people. I'm recruiting 17,000 assistants. Out of that, probably 10,000 I'll have to deploy in IT. I was in HSBC, I was surprised, out of their global 220,000 people, 89,000 are in IT. Unless we keep on benchmarking and thinking, if necessary, much beyond incremental, we will be failing as leaders. Tolerance for failure. I know there is one cool thing that is going which is called designed for failing. I was speaking with my friend that, in large organization, leadership fails to document failures. So as a leader, unless I document failure, so many valuable lessons are buried forever without anybody benefiting out of them. Success is spoken about. As they say, success has many fathers, and failure is an orphan. In the new world, from the top or from whatever position you are to your bottom, you must show increased tolerance, and that increase is not incremental increase again. Multiple folds of increase in tolerance toward failure. Many times probably you'll have to congratulate people for trying well and failing. Many organizations, I know for sure Tata Group does it, where failure is celebrated. Good try. Value creation has to go out from being the jamindari or jagirdari of the top management. Many times top management, people like me who sit on the board or who lead organization, our ideas are rusted. Our ideas are moored in probably 30 years back. Unless we traditionally, not much to be done, unless we go out or unless we go to the window and open that window, where does we get that breath of fresh air? Impossible. So, bottom of the organization, please do not underestimate. Those of you who are new, you say new entrants to the annals of leadership, remember this truth. And I always tell that, look at me, I have done 1,000 things out of which 990 have failed and still I am standing before you. So failure doesn't kill, and if you are not killed, you get stronger. So then innovation as a vertical, innovation in large organizations especially, I know for sure in my organization, innovative people are not given that much of a high profile. Kuch naya karta rehta hai. But another saying is that I was in Microsoft CIO's conclave, where one thing that gained quite a ground is that culture eats strategy for breakfast. Unless you change the culture, whatever strategy you may do, it is lost as the first meal to the culture. So unless you involve the bottom of the organization, the culture of the organization will eat away all your strategy. So whatever you do, your communication has to be robust. The way you transmit those things to the bottom line has to be robust, and innovation has to be given the profile that it deserves, and it has to come from whoever, whether you are at the middle level of leadership, whether you are at the senior level of leadership. Innovative people shouldn't be, labeled as theoretical, as impractical, or as absurd, or as lunatics, or as dreamers. Those are all sometimes good labels, but we will have to give them the profile. Leadership language, you know, what do you speak, how do you speak, those have to change. Then decision making, as I told you, in the world of social media, whether you want it or not, everything is federated. Everybody knows everything. In fact, the other day, my chairman called me and told that her account, a screenshot has been posted in the social media. And she was very, very upset that what is privacy. I told, ma'am, welcome to the real world. So, if something is so very inevitable, how do we integrate as leaders these things into our way of working? Federated information, information where privacy around the edges is blurred, if that is the way of it, why not we leverage it? How many of us, you know, maintain social media platforms of our own? Social media inside, secured social media inside organizations. There are startup friends here. I request all of you to think of creating secured social media for organizations. People are using WhatsApp because it's convenient, because it's comfortable, because it's efficient. But one thing that is coming is that, you know, what we are not thinking about security. The security certification is given in very broad, you know, a yellow color banner is displayed in that it is end-to-end encrypted. No audit about it, nothing about it. So when all these federated decision making, all this federated social media, everything is coming, we must always also think of newer innovations, of ring fencing our assets, IT assets, both software, hardware, IP, and so on and so forth. Now, a few words of caution. One is that in enterprises, I told it is very well to say that, yes, you must design yourself for failure and all. But your CFO will throw you out of the window if you don't establish quick wins. So at the design phase, leadership has to think constantly about quick wins. A few quick wins and managing the optics is very important in the digital world. Second thing is that many times, you know, we lose at the end of it. From my experience, I can tell if you take 3 months to take a decision versus 3 minutes to take a decision, the error of margin is same, about 5%. So if that be so, if quick win has established itself, scale it up very fast. And scaling it up, you'll make errors, but scale it up. The new world wants that initiatives must be scaled up really, really fast at the speed of light, or as they say, speed of thought. Very important. Last is that change must be sustained. You know, there should be nobody who comes later on, as they say, innovation, if it is not embedded into the culture of the organization, becomes a novelty in no time. हाँ, महापात्र साहब आए थे, कुछ नया काम करके गए, बस हो गया. So sustaining and embedding change is going to be the new challenge before leadership. So to sum up again, you know, you will have to look at organization structure, you will have to look at the talent, you will have to look at the culture, you will have to have multi-modal ways of working, and also the visionary strategy always guiding all of you. Now, I have told that a leader has to straddle in many ways. He has to be at 5,000 feet over the sea level. If necessary, he has to roll up his sleeves and, you know, dabble in mud so that he can inspire the front line. Bimodal is the key. if necessary, I always, when I was in London, you know, we had a something, we had some kind of an, exchange with the regulators. So regulator asked Mr. Mahapatra, what is your vision about retail banking? I told, I believe retail banking from a leader's perspective, as the head of the whole region, I believe it should be hands-on, hands-off. You should have the ability to be hands-on when it is required, but when it is not required or when it is doing well, you should learn how to withdraw and stay out and give elbow room to the operatives to work. No one style is good. Somebody says he's a micromanager or he's a macro manager. I think today, again, bimodal. You have to be macro manager if necessary, you have to be a micro manager if necessary. So this digital world, because of the power that is there, what they call SMAC, you know, the social media, mobile, analytics, and the cloud, has brought you so many tools at the disposal of the leader, that leadership style can be of any time. Leadership style can change any moment. Leadership style is empowered, but leaders must empower themselves. That is the whole idea. Now, a few things. World will be surely different, as I told you. One thing has to come, especially to the mindset of people in large organizations like myself, that we must have that venture capitalist mindset. A venture capitalist invests in 30 ventures, only 2 pays them off, rest 28 are failures. But potential has to be looked at. The brilliance of idea is the key determinant rather than ROI or ROE. Many times ROI and ROE in IT and digital investments will be very, very difficult to measure. I have requested my board to set aside 100 crores to dabble with new ideas. Because we must. There is no two ways. That is survival. Can I think of a point solution like my friends in the startups do? No, because my DNA is not engineered for that. So I'll have to collaborate. No two ways about it. And as I told you, ROI has to coexist with cool. Today, if I develop, you know, banking for my wearable, it costs me 50 crores. I do not know. I do not have a hope in hell that this will get paid off in next 5 years. But I'll have to do it because it's cool. Because I can take some mileage out of it. I can tell optically that, yes, I am doing social media banking. Today, it is a valuation game. How much of it is really making money is suspect. But even then, leaders have to accept the fact that ROI has to exist with cool. What is good, what looks good, what is spoken good, what is trending in the social media, what is viral. All those things, all of us must always be aware and abreast of. Very, very important. Relevance of business model, one big pain point, or as they say, pain in the wrong side of the body, is going to be, you know, you establish a relevance, is going to be thing of the past in no time, and we'll have to live with it. So that's it from me. Thank you. I hope that I have welcomed you to the real world. Thank you. Any questions? Thank you.
The next topic is imbibing a digital mindset, how to inculcate and empower a culture in the organization where everybody thinks, breathes, eats digital, and this is done keeping in mind the organizational constraints. I request Mr. Saurabh Chatterjee, Senior Vice President and Head of IT, Digital Sales and Marketing from Bajaj Allianz General Insurance to come onto the stage.
morning, everyone. I think after Mr. Mahapatra's presentation, my job is very simple, because we exactly, are talking about the same thing. But let me just, two things which came out of the earlier presentation, I want to just take it forward. Am I audible? Okay. Two things I want to take it forward. One thing which struck me was culture eats strategy for breakfast. The second thing was ROI has to coexist with the cool. So now I belong to a world, wherein from my engineering days, came up, and now suddenly I'm in a role where I not just have to think digital, but I have to actually build the whole thing, conceptualize, build it, execute it, and also sell it. I have the P&L, to actually deliver all this, results, both the top line and the bottom line to the organization. So I thought maybe one of the most relevant topics to talk about this is the digital mindset, not just at the leadership level, but even going forward at the very, very ground level in the organization. So there are some thoughts here which I want to share with all of you. My presentation is very simple. There is some gyan, and I'm sure, after today, between yesterday and today, all of you have been overloaded and, going beyond this. So there's very little bit of gyan I want to give. A little bit of storytelling, some examples that, and again, I have, whatever I say here, all the caution is there, this is my personal views, all of us. But little bit of storytelling. And then finally, a few thoughts or takeaways. It's very simple, probably will wrap up in 15 minutes or 10 minutes. I would want to understand a few questions from you. We'll see how the time goes and see, take it forward. As I said, warning. The presentation is, okay, I think the entire, let me just check the, yeah, this is because it was done on, so this is where technology comes in, right? Windows 10 I've been using. But as I said, I'm a practitioner, and these are all my personal views. The last line, which is important here, is I've failed many times in the past trying some of this, ideas, but had loads of fun doing it. And I still do. That's what it is, that's where it is cut off. So I'll start with something which is, Alvin Toffler, an American futurist, and, I had the, good fortune of interacting with not just him, but, some people around him in the Fortune list of, the editorial group when I was in US. The key thing here is the last line, unlearn and relearn. Now, many times what happens is, the Holy Trinity we talk about, right? Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh. I think the Mahesh is the most important part. Because many times, the business models that we have created, it is actually cannibalizing our own business models. Unless we are ready to do that, unless we are ready to think about that, I don't think the change will come. Everything can coexist. With the current, the future can coexist. But fundamentally, the same things which are giving you the business models which are giving you revenue, which are sustaining you today, is what you need to unlearn. Creative destruction. We are familiar with all the terms, the management jargon that we talk about, but that's the most important thing to focus here. The next concept I want to introduce, leave you with is certain ingredients of this entire digital mindset. The left-hand side top, we talk about something called abundance and growth mindset. Now, I hear even today, many organizations, not just in India and even outside, this whole concept of this is our IP, this is our pricing, our rules. Yeah, certainly there are certain things, which are very, very specific. But that core, we have taken it so enlarged, that it does not stay to be a core. I come from the insurance world. I often hear, our pricing, our rules, our ways of, doing things are unique to us. Guess what? The new aggregators that are coming in, right? When I talk to people like Varun Dua of CoverFox or Yashish Dahiya of Policy Bazaar, they actually have reverse engineered the entire pricing logic and tell me this is your pricing logic that you use. I haven't told them anything. The awareness of that being, having that abundance mindset, in the sense, the growth mindset, that whatever is yours, definitely form a core around it, but that has shrunk very little. But then be open. The next one on the left-hand side bottom, agile thinking and execution. I think agile is not just about the way that shorter time frame and all. It is about being able to change very fast, realize and change very fast, and then maybe you have to go in a different direction. The third one is the comfort with ambiguity. Now, of course, we live in the whole VUCA world, and many things are changing on a day-to-day basis. But again, the whole concept of ambiguity has been changing over a period of time. Today, you are dealing with so many people. Your employees, the concept of employees has changed. Mr. Mahapatra talked about the partner, vendor and partner. Every one of you that we met here, that I have met here, all of you are very important ingredients for my digital success. Each conversation that we have had in the last, yesterday and today before going is going to help us. Is going to help me. Realizing this as, from a digital mindset standpoint is very important. Now, some of this looks like a concept, but as you think over it, you would understand that this is the behavioral traits that we exhibit. Talking with every level of the organization, talking with the kind of audience that we interact with on a day-to-day basis. The final thing on the right-hand side, embracing diversity. Now, again, this is not I'm not an HR person, so this diversity is not about gender diversity or or various kinds of. When I talk about diversity, this is again related to that exploratory acumen and ambiguity. Everything diverse, which may not be in your field. Today, as I said, this is not just IT or technology delivering it. Digital mindset is not equal to technology acumen. We're talking about having that diverse way of thinking more in terms of the entire value chain. Having an idea about the marketing, having an idea about how to create it, having an idea how to sell it, and then obviously to support it. That's what we're talking about, embracing diversity. Let me take you forward. This is taken from Forbes. As I said, there's like, what struck me here was the line that you start with, provide vision, yet empower others. Give up control, yet architect the choices. Yet. That is the ambiguity that we're talking about. These are exactly polarizing opposite kind of thoughts, if you see. Vision but empower. Control, yet architect the choices. Architect the choices. Let's just take one of the specific things. As leaders, and as well as as the digital natives, what we call, as leaders specifically, we have a bias. Obviously as humans we have the confirmation bias, but then as leaders we also have a bias. We say to our team, this is the direction we should be taking, or we probably are taking, and here's the vision and here's the strategy and everything. It's almost like they have to opt out of it. It's a default opt-in for them. That's where we are talking. The concept that I'm trying to introduce here is the leaders need to be choice architects. Choice architects or architects of choice. Essentially, you cannot say that this, the team, you have an option of opting out. Rather, give a general idea, give a direction, but then hear from them in terms of, are they ready to opt in? Are there 10 other ways of working on this? Let me move forward. So now I'll talk about, a little more, let me go a little more deeper into, so what could be, how could the org structures different, which are evolving in this whole digital world? There are 4 models. These are again in the, we are all used to the CMM models, so in the order of maturity. But let me just talk about the four models. The first model, now don't go by the word tactical, because I believe, that is right now the models where, the word tactical throws us all off. We're never tactical, right? We're either strategic or, or centralized. But in the digital world, the tactical model, this is where IT side sits on the side. Obviously, the C-suite, is right there. Different business units are there. The digital is happening everywhere. IT is doing few, innovation kind of projects. Digital is the buzzword. We are all executing different projects. The retail channel, in the insurance world, we have the sales is divided into more retail sales and corporate. Then we have the all horizontal organizations within the company. Everyone is doing something on digital. I believe, and again, this is, with the context I'm saying, at least what I know, I believe most of us belong here. Silos are getting created. Repetition is happening. The next model, which is more the centralization model, this is where the thinking is central. However, we have created guerrilla units. Essentially, we have a very strong, pragmatic, charismatic leader, knows how to drive the digital agenda in the organization, puts it out there, this is how you need to do, and then the execution is technically given out. They're not executing, the central groups. There are some 4, 5, 7, 10 people, in that group who are actually trying to go into each one of the units and getting that. IT is still there. The next two models, which is where I got, I tell the third model is more the champion model. This is a slight variation about the other model, the centralization model, where some of the execution is happening. In the champion model, you establish these digital exemplars or digital champions who go out and embed themselves into different groups. And then the execution happens. Now, there are numerous examples across, all across the world where people are trying different models. And I'll come to some of the examples as we move further. But this is the third model that we're talking about. The final model is the BAU model. Again, the word BAU is a misnomer, Business as usual is a misnomer, but business as usual in the digital world, where in the greens, if you see, everything is now all green. Right? Where the thinking, whatever change is happening, the execution is also happening at the same rate. The compensation mechanism, that whenever you reach a certain, all the feedback into the input is happening at the same pace. This is the BAU model. So as we aspire, all organizations will be at a different level, but the whole concept that I'm trying to introduce is org models are also evolving, and it is moving from one step to the other. So you can always guess as well as see how your organization is moving. This is another concept, I want to introduce. See, there is something, I still hear, how many people you need, both within the organization as well as how many vendor partners you need, what's the count, budget. We go through that process. This whole concept of the open talent economy. How do you leverage everyone in the whole entire landscape, everyone that is available at our disposal? And I'm using that term as a resource. Even all of your expertise, all the respect that I have for all of you here, I can use that. That is at my disposal as a resource. The resource may not be the right, the politically correct word, but that's a resource available at my disposal. This is what it talks about. Left-hand side, balance sheet talent. Right-hand side, open source talent. And everywhere, there are different organizations trying to leverage different kind of talent, but then in the new world, in the digital world, all this is collapsing. So the idea is we all, utilize what is available at your disposal, and you have to move around almost. This is not, again, I think linear thinking we talked about. This is that thinking, leveraging talent in a non-linear way. I come to some examples now. Now, again, purposely non-Indian examples because, there's a reason for that. I didn't want that bias. Many of you may be doing it in my organization. Certain things are getting done. But I just wanted to, bring out a few examples. Valve. Valve is a digital, it's a video game maker as well as digital content distributor in the US. 300 employees. Overall vision is there. There's no manager, no hierarchy. Everyone, that last bullet, 300 employees choose their own projects, convince others, assemble their own teams. Their employee productivity is more than 4 times the Apple or Google today. This is the kind of org structure of the digital, thinking, mindset that has been embedded in that organization and then moving forward. we're talking about new age organizations, agreed. You know, there are some examples which I'll talk about where established organizations have taken that. But that's the whole concept. Zappos, again a 1,500 employee US-based shoe retailer. They called their operating system Halocracy. Similar concept. See how things are evolving. The new age digital worker is actually not, you know, there's the respect in terms of hierarchy is completely gone. It's the content, what you stand for, and how you deliver it. That is what is that's where the respect comes from. There's an Indian organization, you know, I recently met. You must be familiar with, you know, some of their, they're trying to model themselves around this. It's called Fractal Analytics. I don't know if you've heard about this. You know, there's a, you know, it's India's pure play, analytics firm. Forget what Fractal does. I'm not here to talk about Fractal. I don't use them. But then the kind of org structure that is there in that organization is more around that. You know, it has some, you know, its own issues as well. But then the kind of work, the data scientists that they need, the statisticians that they need, the kind of heavily talented guys that they get from the IIMs or Indian Statistical Institute, this is where, you know, there's a way to manage them. And as leaders, you know, this is the digital mindset that we are talking about. Of course, the last example was more VR Social and Alliance Boots, but it's a similar example. Let me talk about two traditional examples. I purposely did not choose BFSI. One is something called Panera Bread. I don't know how many of you heard about it. You know, traditional 300 outlet US-based fast food, or or they call themselves more a healthy food retailer. Completely changed their entire model. Went into Panera 2.0. Started with some basic stuff about digital ordering. Put everything on the mobile. Put everything on the on the tab. You can pre-order. And you come in, pick up your food, and directly go to sit and eat, or be on the table and you order, and then it comes automatically. Interesting thing is, they realized that what their current model was, it was dying. And if they continued in that model, the efficiency of this, efficiency of scale that they were trying to achieve in terms of cost benefits and all will not sustain them. Therefore, they had to change the model. But most interestingly, some of the insights that these guys got were from its own employees, from their own children, from their own vendor partners that they called in. One of the interesting things that they engaged was this bullet on the bottom, third bullet, bitkids.panerabread.com. Fantastic concept wherein they engaged the children of their employees and said whoever wants who wants to know about more baking and introduce that concept of more constant engagement, you can come over, we'll have a class together, then let's look at the feedback. Most of their insights came from there, and that's how they established digital champions. I'll take one more example and then wrap up. This is BA, again the slide, British Airways. The interesting thing here that they did was homegrown digital talent. What they realized was, out of the huge workforce that they have across the organization, not just in IT, many of them, at least 20–25% of these guys were having their own websites, were actually doing some work on the side, maybe not just for commercial purposes, but but on their own. Had ideas which were not just in the the airline industry but across the board, went across. They actually formalized that. They call that the Talent Scout Employee Recommendation Program. So essentially, if you are a person and you know someone in the organization knows something about and has a bright idea and has done something and is could be helpful in the digital future, I brought them on board formally. The organization gains, I gain. The person gains. There's another concept that they used was ungrounded, which was essentially which was more a skills kind of a retraining where people wanted to go outside and see what is happening outside. This is with United Nations. And DNA is an organization which does it on a more formal basis. It's called Ungrounded. And their CFO, not just the person tasked with the digital agenda in the organization, came up with this whole concept of, and his comment also I'll show you, this is the on and off balance sheet workforce. Essentially, the off balance sheet workforce is something that they cultivated and even do, and have a proper approach on how do you reach out to these guys, how do you get these guys into the whole ecosystem, and how do you utilize them on an ongoing basis. Not just informally, more a formal approach. So this brings me to some of the storytelling obviously I did. Now finally I want to wrap it up with a few things. The typical organization structure, I think the most important thing for us to realize is this: while it is a cycle, you have to start somewhere. And while this may look very nicely like a circle, it's not that way. Each one of the skills that we need to do in the whole digital world, activities that we need to do, is different. Couple of things which others have tried. My organization, we are trying a few things. These are again some examples. Reverse mentoring is something that we are trying out, and it works fantastic. All the egos of the leaders from a digital mindset standpoint goes away, goes out of the door. You as equal, or you as someone looking up to the board or the CEO for certain direction, if you go and talk, certain things will not register. Get the guy on the field, because obviously the leader is not supposed to say anything in terms of build the whole the talent of that person. Works fantastic. We call it the T-shaped talent. Gamification challenges. I think again that whole concept of, we introduced something within the organization which was our own Facebook, Twitter, the push-pull communication. Put it on the on a mobile, and then gave it out. Entire thing, including authentication, everything is on the cloud. This is where the techie in me comes in. But this is a very nice looking app. Believe me, the kind of inputs that are coming for our future product introductions, the servicing challenges that we have today, the best ideas are coming out from here. And then we have introduced a gamification concept where you get points around it. And obviously, based on certain points, you get a certain reward. And this is also now getting linked to their KPIs. Of course, sabbaticals and external partnerships. I just want to mention about sabbaticals. I'm sure all of you know about different ecosystems that exist in the country. Wherein whether it's IIM Bangalore, whether it is NASSCOM, whether it is BSc on its 14th floor is doing something interesting which we are a part of. But then, unless this is with a proper vision and a scope around this, you can't let this whole sabbatical thing work like on its own. It has to be given certain direction. Finally, this is my penultimate slide. From a leader standpoint, I guess, different ideas, different thoughts. Many of you, would have heard all about this. Failure, engage, share, asking a lot of questions. I would stress on only two things, which, I believe, this last two, and again, they may not, the last two on the bottom. Be a fan. The Shah Rukh Khan movie is there, of course, fan. But, I'm not talking just, that also brings in an interesting concept, but also develop a fan following. Even if it is very small set of individuals in the entire organization, it brings an incredible amount of value. People are not afraid to come to your door and actually narrate on things which, forgive me, which suck in the organization and which are brilliant in the organization. So be a fan and have a fan following. Develop a fan following. Not just have a fan following, develop, work towards that. This is the last comment, I would say the Chief Commercial Officer of British Airways, where the takeaway. The last line, of course, it's important to find these people and leverage their skills. This is what I leave you with. Again, to summarize, where the two things which, the entire, why this presentation came up was, so much is happening about digital every day. I hear that 30, 35 times a day. Someone asks me, on the word digital, whether it is within the organization or outside the organization. Unless the way our thinking evolves, and unless we realize consciously, not just as a buzzword, realize consciously and take these to the next level, I don't think you cannot build a digital organization. Forget a digital organization. Today, everything is digital. You cannot survive in the new world, which is going to be digital. Thank you.
Yeah, on the 4 models which you showed
Right.
of digital structure. Now, in a general financing organization, generally you will have sourcing, servicing, and the collections of bad debts and the processes which happen thereafter.
Yeah.
We've also seen offline channels which are now getting superseded by the online channels,
Right.
right? So we have DSAs who take care mainly from the offline side. We also have some amount of cross-sell analytics, etc. happening. And now the digital part also coming in. While some of these can be different businesses in an organization, for example, getting the leads, getting the sourcing, even doing some amount of servicing, when it comes to collections, you can actually have a leverage upon a shared or a common platform. So which particular model of these 4 would this fall into? Because there's no point having 2 different collection sets.
So, so let me take you a little step behind. Irrespective of the channels or irrespective of some part of the process may still continue to be, I think again I refer to Mr. Mahapatra, he used the term brokered, assisted or brokered, more where you need the FOS or which is not completely self-service. Irrespective of the model, what the in which your business processes is. This talks about more conceptually how you are actually getting the whole digital as a mindset across the organization. So you may be 50% manual or 50% may be automated. I'll just very crudely, right? There's an FOS. You can actually you can still evolve across all these 4 models, but the way of thinking has to obviously change from one model to the other. So for example, in the first model, you will be in the same model where your individual loan unit or the home loans unit that you have department, that may be doing certain initiatives which are more digital in nature, but you will be dependent on IT to do certain things, right? You could always continue either in that model or evolve to the next model wherein over a period of time, I want to reduce this 50% from a broker to say 30% or 20%. But for that, I need a vision, which is where the second model comes in, where you're actually lying from the top saying, here's the vision, but the execution probably needs to continue to happen in that home loan unit. So right or wrong, again, it's your business call, and that it is just an evolution of the thought process in the model that we are taking. I hope I answered your question in a certain way.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Yes, I have one
Please,
question.
please.
Before asking you questions, Saurabh, I must say thanks to Mr. Mohapatra for wonderful presentation. Thank you, sir. Saurabh, I have questions. Yesterday, I mentioned about digital onboarding of customer.
Yeah.
What insurance industry is looking for that kind of solutions? Because there are 2 more presentations from insurance segment, and you came. I know your background. You came from 2 big insurance companies. There is a lot of hassle to to sign insurance policy. As I'm asking as a customer, I'm not asking as an IT guy.
Yeah.
What kind of digital solutions or digital onboarding solutions available in insurance segment?
So from a retail customer standpoint, this is not with the presentation, but I know I'm more saying separately. From a retail customer standpoint, today, my self-service features that are there, more in the either in the buy process or in the renewal process, is very, very limited. It's limited. It's under 2 digits. Essentially 8 to 9% or 10% of the time, and even in terms of the number of volume of the customers that are coming in. What we are now doing is we are looking at that entire customer journey outside in instead of inside out, along with the products that can be offered more on a straight-through process. And each part of the entire process, we are taking from how much self-service can we just do the entire process self-service. Now there are certain restrictions in terms of the wet signature, in terms of which we are obviously, it's a regulated industry, we have to follow, but I know that will also come along, in the next 1 year or so. I think many of those things will go. So the key thing that we are looking at customer onboarding is look at it from an outside in view and do as much as possible in a self-service way. Every business process. And for this, it's not just paper getting converted into an online. Because the same process can get converted. It's the business process restructuring is happening. So I'll talk to you in detail about specific technologies that we are looking at, but then that's the thought process.
Thank you.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you.
Services Private Limited to come onto the stage.
Morning, friends. I would prefer. Thanks to the organizers, we are having a live discussions on digital, the leadership by Mr. Mrityunjay Mahapatra. And there is one presentation on the imbibing digital mindset by Saurabh. I must say thank you, Mr. Mahapatra. It was a very awesome, thought-provoking information, and to Saurabh as well. Today I'm going to take you through, not on the presentation, but more on our experiences on the role of ATMs in financial inclusion. And it's an exciting journey all through. It all started with a Government of India initiative of financial inclusion. The Government of India has social benefit schemes which runs into thousands of crores of rupees each year. What happens? These disbursements from the respective ministries go through either a broker or through a third party, but the beneficiary will not get the 100% of the disbursement meant for the person. For example, today we have the schemes like MNREGA, MNREGA, which runs into 3,000 to 4,000 crores of rupees every month disbursed to the respective beneficiary. Due to this system inadequacies, where there is pilferage, where the broker takes the major chunk of the amount which is not given to the beneficiary, the Government of India has been contemplating how this amount can be directly sent to the beneficiary by using technology. So the Ministry of Finance and other ministries have been called, and they came out with a program called Introducing Automated Teller Machines in the Financial Inclusion Program. So how does this work? Each ministry has a set of, their list of beneficiaries to which the amounts have to be disbursed. They have been identified. They have been sent to the respective lead banks through Ministry of Finance, and lead banks have been told to open the account of the beneficiary. Now, the beneficiary account is open in Core Bank. So the moment the account is open, the beneficiary gets an ATM card, and when the amount is transferred from the respective ministries, he gets a notification saying that your amount is available in the account, and he goes to the nearest ATM where he can withdraw the money. Okay. Now, the catch is, having said India is so vast, how does the beneficiary who are spread over the length and breadth of the country, who can get the cash at his doorstep? So the ministry devised a program through this called Direct Benefit Transfer, calling the banks to float the tender for DBT districts, where the beneficiary will have the access for getting the cash, not from the branch, but from the ATM. So the journey started in the financial inclusion. Mainly this program is driven for the direct benefit transfer, or it's called direct cash transfer programs. Today, this program envisaged rolling out of ATMs for the rural masses. And the program started in 2012 onwards, completed in 15. Touch wood, the public sector banks had deployed close to 40,000 ATMs in a short span of 2 years for this program. So this, in a way, is a very effective way of using the technology to reach the common man. So the role of ATMs in the financial inclusion was much appreciated for the reason there is no pilferage. The beneficiary amount is safe in the in his account, and he can withdraw the amount at any point of time from the ATM. So we started this journey working with Ministry of Finance. There are close to 8 vendors who have got the mandate, and we in electronic payment services got the mandate of deployment of ATMs, close to 5,000 ATM in the state of Maharashtra, and that's how our journey started in the financial inclusion and the role of ATMs. Today, if we look back, the last 3 years of the implementation of this DBT scheme, there is a total outgo of close to 4,000 crores every month to these beneficiary. And the program is being extended to other schemes like LPG scheme and PAHAL LPG subsidy, and also for the kerosene program. Now, when I say this role of ATMs again for the financial inclusion, there are use cases where the beneficiary comes to the ATM and he wants to withdraw the cash. Now the question is, if it is a branch, it's available only in the branch hours. So what we also said is, wherever there is a challenge, in case branch is not available, we informed the banks and the ministry also to set up the machine in off-site, where there is large distribution of these beneficiary cards, so that the beneficiary can go and do the transaction and get the money out. So this, in a way, has created a kind of trend for enabling the financial inclusion by helping the DBT scheme successful for the Government of India. So in this financial inclusion, I will broadly categorize this into 3 categories. One is the DBT, or the direct cash transfer. Another is through Aadhaar, the Aadhaar number and card. And third, through RuPay cards. Now, having said about the DBT, now today we see, it's audible? Today we see the trend. There are 2 landmarks that we have, India has crossed. One is 100 crores Aadhaar number, which has been given. And also, the mobile has surpassed another 100 crores, which means there is a plethora of developments happening, including the Aadhaar number or the Aadhaar beneficiary getting the connected to the DBT scheme by way of Aadhaar-enabled payments. So the next set of move is also benefiting the Aadhaar beneficiaries, and here they can also use, instead of ATM card, they can also use the thumb in the biometric in the ATM and get their amount from the government schemes. The third is the successful rollout of the RuPay cards, which is the last 2 years, the momentum you would have seen is the Prime Minister's Jan Dhan Yojana. Today we have close to 200 million cards issued only in the PMJDY, and it is also giving the social benefit schemes of insurance and other products. So this, in a way, the ATMs have helped the government scheme of the direct benefit transfer, the Aadhaar beneficiaries, and the PMJDY by enabling them the RuPay cards. Going forward, the government is also proposed, which is available in the through papers and other media, close to 70 to 75,000 crores are being envisaged by these government schemes to be dispersed for these rural masses for availing these benefits from the Government of India through these schemes. Now, going forward, the government is also looking at enlarging this scope further, where all government payments can also be routed through this DBT scheme, and the beneficiary can get the cash through the ATMs. Electronic payment systems played a kind of a role in the government financial inclusion program. And this company was started in the year 2011. And 2012, we got the contract from the Ministry of Finance, initiated this project, financial inclusion project, where we have to deploy close to 5,000 machines in the state of Maharashtra. So our journey started with participating in the government's financial inclusion program. And today, at the end of 2015, we have close to 5,000 ATMs deployed for this specific Ministry of Finance financial inclusion. Now, I leave a thought going forward, how this scheme has helped in really cutting down the pilferages, the cash that has to go to the beneficiary, but has been taken by the middlemen of brokers. Now, going forward, this scheme is being extended close to 30 crores of beneficiaries, and again, the outlay is also being extended by the Government of India so that the scheme gets benefited through the technology and adoption of ATMs in the financial inclusion. Today, the market stands overall, the ATM market is around 220,000 ATMs pan-India, out of which close to just 25% below are in the rural village. India has close to 600,000 villages, and out of which only 250,000 villages either have a branch or an ATM. We still have a long way to go, covering another 400,000, 4 lakh villages in India. The cards issued are close to 700 million, 70 crores. Today we have close to 650 million debit cards, close to 35 to 40 million credit cards, and still another 500 to 600 million cards we need to cover. So this industry, ATM industry, has played a major role in enabling the financial inclusion with the Government of India. And I leave the thought process in another, the estimate is by 2019 and 20, or rather 2020, another 200,000 ATMs are required to be deployed, and we have a long way to go. And EPS, in a way, being started as a startup in 11 and 12, today we have deploying machines, not just public sector banks, but for other banks as well. We have grown from a startup to today a much matured player. We are an end-to-end ATM service provider to the banks. And last month, March, we clocked a revenue of 170 crores.